Hey, what's up, everybody? Chad Calek here, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast for episode number 118, I believe. For the first time ever, I'm actually recording this at the Malvern Manor, which is an event I'm holding here back in Malvern, Iowa, with about 15 of my good friends who have come out to join me for a weekend-long ghost hunt, and we actually just did a Christmas gift exchange, which was fun because it was kind of oddly placed, in a haunted house that was a former mental asylum. It felt kind of interesting to pass around gifts for Christmas, but it was a lot of fun, and I keep coming back here again to Iowa, and it's so weird. I was thinking about this earlier yesterday when I was driving around. I have such mixed emotions about Iowa because there were so many negative things that occurred back here. But when I think about it, everything good in my life that I have now, from best friends to my wife to my career, the seeds of all of it, we're here in Iowa. And I've just kind of come to the conclusion that I'm just always going to be coming back to Iowa. It's just always going to be a part, of my life. And when I finished American Ghost Hunter filming it there, I remember thinking, when I left, I think I might have even said to Ryan, well, that's it. I don't have a reason to ever come back here again. And I came back like within a year. I was coming back to do events. And I've asked myself many times why. Because I've been all over the world to do events, and I've ghost hunted all over the world. And, what is it about Iowa that keeps drawing me back here to do events like this? And I know part of the answer is just the people. Josh, who owns this place, has been following my work for a long time, probably a decade. I probably met him that long ago. And, one of the nicest guys you could ever imagine. Every time I talk to him, it seems like I talked to him yesterday, no matter how many years go by. And same thing with old friends. I come back and connect with certain old friends, and it's like no time has passed. And it kind of made me realize that it's true, that the whole statement that you could take the boy out of Iowa, but you can't take Iowa out of the boy. It's like these places that we go to in our lives, they become rooted inside of us, where no matter where I go, no matter where I live, I'm taking those memories with me, which is why I have it tattooed on my body. And you would think someone would run, from a negative experience that they had in something that was so difficult. But I think part of the reason that I keep coming back to is the realization that there is unfinished business, that American Ghost Hunter didn't seal everything, that it was more of a picture of a journey that was playing out than it was, the crossing of any finish line. And when I come back here, I could feel it. I could feel the difference in these locations versus anywhere else. The one difference I could say from the activity at places in Iowa, especially southwestern Iowa, it's just incredibly active. The overall, to do a paranormal event, I used to always start our paranormal events by saying, hey, I hope you just came here to have a good time with cool people, and that you're not hinging your experience here on whether or not something paranormal happens, because 99% of the time on paranormal events, things don't happen. Like when you go to events and you're hoping for something bizarre to happen. I mean, if I can get back the hours of my life at the end of my life that I've sat in the dark talking to nobody and nothing happened, I mean, it's a lot. But I was just realizing I'm sitting here with my friends, and everybody in this place has had some experience. Every person, every last one has had something happen that they can't fully explain. And this trip, to be honest, it's been much more, I guess, mild, you could say. There's been little things here and there, but nothing, overtly massive. But the last time I was here, it was crazy. About 6 months ago, I came back to the Malvern Manor, and the history is that I was just talking to Josh. I hope I get this right. That it was a hotel, and then it became like an old folks' home, and then from there it became like a mental asylum for a while. And it's hard, unless you've been here, it's hard to, I guess, know about the location that I'm talking about. But if you can, with your mind's eye as you're listening to this, imagine you walk into a building, there's about 10, 15 feet that you could walk straight, and then you take a right, and there's a long corridor, and it leads back into where these old bedrooms were. And when you get to the end of that long corridor, if you take another right, you go back to, it's like a wing of like 4 rooms that are like back in this area. And the last time I was here, my friend Kevin, who's here with us right now, you guys have heard him on the podcast before. He was the police officer that I interviewed about, the riots and the looting and all that stuff. We were back there. We were back in this area that I was just describing. And we kept hearing stuff going on in the room, and kind of, it sounded like things were being like thrown, or like little objects, not like big bricks or anything, like little, like somebody threw something on the ground. Things would bounce and move, or there'd just be a strike. And then one of my good friends, Heather Taddy, who you guys may know from Paranormal State, she was out here with me. She's out here tonight, right now. She's actually sitting 20 feet from me, staring at me with her watchful eye right now. She's investigating my motives. Heather, I think you heard some stuff in that room too, right? First, did you hear it, or did you see something?
It sounded like something moving, and then I actually heard footsteps go around me.
Yeah.
It just sounded like feet going, like lifting off the carpet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how well this mic's picking up, but basically she's confirming this thing. Yes, that she heard something in the room, kind of like knocking and moving around, and it sounded like footsteps went around her. And I agree with her. There was weird stuff going on in that room, and I had been staring in the room from the hallway the whole night. I mean, at least probably a couple hours, and I was standing next to Kevin. And then something in that room moved. Like it was against the wall, and it just moved. And you could see the whole blackness of it just move. And, I about jumped through my skin the first time, and then confirming it, with Kevin as well, that he saw it. And then at that point, a couple other people came back, and they ended up seeing it. And a good friend of mine that was also here, this gentleman, Lee Anderson, had said, well, maybe it's, these lights from outside. That are kind of like flashing into the room. And because I had already been in the room, I kind of knew that wasn't a possibility from the angle that he was sitting at. But he went outside and walked out the front door, turned on lights, had people drive by in cars, and, nothing would make this effect happen. And I was trying to explain that not only did we see something shift from like right to left, there's a couple times where whatever was in that room seemed like it was coming towards us, like it was moving at us. And, when you have these types of experiences, it sounds crazy to be talking about it. It sounds like you're describing something in a movie that isn't real. And, how could they be saying this happened? This is clearly bullshit, But what do you say when it's not? It's real. You're not, we aren't stupid people. We aren't crazy outside of our lives. There's not other things in our lives that we run around telling tall tales about. These things really happen, and until you go to an event and experience it, I get that it's hard to understand. It's hard to understand that there are things in the world that we know nothing about, and happen to us all the time. And I always say to people that it's not that the paranormal isn't occurring all the time. It is. It's whether or not you're going to slow down enough to give a shit, or whether or not it even matters enough to you, which is the whole new car effect. The idea that when you buy a new car, suddenly you recognize everybody else is driving the same car as you. It's not because people bought that car that day and now suddenly you're seeing it. It's because it's important to you in your mind, and your subconscious is now scanning to see what that car looks like. So you pick it up and you see it. And it's the same thing with the paranormal. Like once you have a paranormal experience, and it's paranormal, and you've tried to debunk it, you've done, got other people involved and brought everybody back, and everybody has the same conclusion. No, this happened. It's not something that you just brush away. So that kind of subconscious is always on scanning. just on scanning and looking for more paranormal events that happen. That's why paranormal investigators who do it a lot have a tendency to capture more things when they go ghost hunting. It's because they're more clued into what is going on. It's more important to them, so they're, they have a tendency to film them and experience them. It just happened a second ago. Before I started recording this podcast, I was having a conversation with Bob, and a bunch of people were talking in the room, and my friend Lori here and Taddy said, "What was that?" They heard like footsteps, and it was one of us. We're patting our feet against the ground, but the fact that they picked out the footsteps amongst the entire conversation that we were having, because I didn't hear it. I didn't hear the footsteps at all. But amongst the conversation that we were having, this loud conversation, they both heard these footsteps. And it's like those investigator ears. That's that subconscious where they both picked those footsteps out of that, that madness and that loudness, when I didn't. I didn't hear it at all. It reminded me, the fact that they heard these footsteps, it reminded me of a story with Joey, who you guys might know from American Ghost Hunter or Blood Red Sky. Joey was always the most scared investigator out of all of us. No matter where we went, Joey was always the one that was scared. And there was an old barn that was out by Justin's property in Persia, just outside where my house was there. And we always wanted to investigate this barn, and we had never done it. And we finally had Joe with us after, I think we were filming something for his band, to be honest. And we were driving back to Persia, and we saw the old barn. And we stopped, and we're like, let's go investigate it. And Joe was absolutely out. Joe's like, dude, no, I'm not ready for this. We didn't say we were going to do this. We were just supposed to go home. Well, now you got me at this barn. I ain't doing it, man. And we started having this conversation that somebody's got to go, but they got to go alone. And Joe's like, dude, if I ain't going to go with you, I ain't going alone. Like, you're out of your mind. So we agreed that it had to be done now, because it was just a matter of pride. If we're going to be badass investigators, we have to go alone to this barn. Somebody has to do it. So we had to decide who. So somehow we came up with the idea that we were going to go bowling. We were going to all three bowl 3 games and add those 3 games up. And whoever was the lowest, they had to go alone to the barn. And it was crazy. So we go, and the bowling match is the funniest thing. I wish I could have had this recorded, because every single ball that Joe threw, it was like his life depended on it. If he didn't get a strike, if he got 7 pins or 6, I mean, it was like you shot him in the chest. He was crushed every time, because he could see that Justin, I jumped way out ahead. I've always been pretty decent at bowling. Believe it or not, I was actually on my high school bowling team. I actually went to state for bowling, which is pretty funny. So I had a pretty good idea that I was going to beat them. Then it would be Justin or Joe that'd be playing for whether or not they go to the barn. So it came down to Justin's final frame. If Justin could, have a strike or pick up a spare, he would beat Joe, and then Joe would be the one to go alone. So Justin gets up, he throws his first ball, and he picks up 9 out of 10 pins. There's 1 pin remaining, and it's right in the middle. It's the back middle pin. So in order for Justin to win, he has to pick up 1 pin in the middle of the the bowling lane, and which is actually very hard. When it comes to bowling, just throwing a ball straight down the middle and have it just riding the line all the way down the middle is very difficult. So Justin, rolls and just barely clips the pin, picks it up, and beats Joe, and he is now so pissed off that he's got to go alone, and we're not going to let him out of it. He's got to go alone. So the whole time we're driving back from Minden to Persia, it's about a 10-minute drive to go to this haunted barn. And oddly enough, we don't even know why the barn is haunted. We just always heard that it was haunted, around the town growing up. And we get all the way back to the barn, and Joe is shaking, scared in the car. And he's just like, just take me home. I'm not doing it. Just take me home. And it's like, Joe, like, listen, you're going to do it. You know, we're going to pull you out of this car and lock the doors if we have to, but you're going to do it because you're on a part of our team and we got to know that we have real investigators. And he's just like, who made these rules up, man? This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. So I start feeling bad for him and I'm just like, okay, listen, we can't force him in there. So I decide I'm going to go. I'll go first. I'll go alone. I'll show him that it was scary, but I was able to get through it. So I get out of the car and they're both sitting in the car and Joey's in the front seat, Justin's in the back filming. And I get about 20 footsteps in front of the car, and everything in the car shuts off. The engine shuts off, the headlights shut off, everything shuts off, and it's now pitch black. And I was just thinking, dicks, like, gee, I said I would go do this alone. This is terrifying already. So they just shut off the car now, and they're not, you know, so I have no light, and now I'm terrified. So I start walking back towards where the car is. And I'm just thinking, you know, in my head, I'm going to tear them up, man. When I open that door, I'm going to scream at them about, do not shut these lights off. It's the only lights I have towards this barn. You can't do this. And I get back to the car, and right as I get to the car turns back on, the lights turn back on. And so I go knock on the window, and I'm just like, hey, dude, listen, don't be shutting off the lights. And Joe is freaking. He's going, dude, we didn't touch the car. We haven't done anything. We're sitting in the car, man. And I know Joey hasn't because he'd have to reach over from the front side. And Justin says to me, no, dude, no one touched anything. And, we have I'm filming. Like, I could show you. Nobody touches anything. So the entire car shut off, the lights, everything, the closer I got to the barn. And as I got back to the car, it turned back on. So at this point, I'm really freaked out. And I'm like, God, I can't do this, guys. I can't go in alone. And Justin's finally like, well, someone's got to go. And I'm like, okay, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go touch the door to the barn. And then I'll turn around and I'll come running back. And then somebody else has got to touch the door. And then after that, the last person's got to go touch the door. And then once we've all touched the door, then we'll all three go together. And, Joey doesn't want to do any of it, but Justin basically says, yeah, we'll do it. So I turn around, I go back up, and the lights are on to the car the whole time. They don't come off. I make my way up to the barn, touch the barn door, turn around as fast as I possibly can. I start making my way back to the car. And it's freezing out, by the way. So I get back to the car, and, Justin's like, so what was it like? And I was like, dude, it was terrifying. Like, every step towards that barn, I felt like my heart was going to explode, man. I just feel like someone's watching me the whole time. Now, keep in mind, someone for real, someone human could be out there. We've not swept the thing. We don't know what's going on out there. So who knows? So Justin says, okay, I'll go next. And he goes, and he does it. And the same thing, he comes back and he's like, it's absolutely terrifying. And Joe's going, oh, man, God, you're not going to make me do this, guys. I'm like, come on, man, you got to go do it. He's like, no, I'm not going to do it. So Joey completely chickens out, and he won't do it. So, but we finally say, we'll let you off the hook, but we're all going. All three of us are going now, and we're going in that barn, and we're going to see what happens in that barn. Joey finally says, okay, fine, but we're all three going, and I got to be in the middle. No one could be in front of me or behind me. I can't be first or last. I got to be in the middle. And I'm like, okay. So we leave the car on. We leave the lights on, the engine running, everything. All three of us are walking towards the barn. We get like 20 feet out in front of the car. The car shuts off. The lights shut off by itself again. And all of us are now together. We're going, oh my God. Like, what is happening? So Joe wants to just leave. Obviously, at this point, he's just like, let's just go. Come on, man. I don't even need this. I don't know why we're doing it. And at this point, I'm committed. Now we've got to go because it's become a thing to me now, right? It's like become something I can't succumb to now. So we get up there, and we all get to the door, and it was so hard to determine who was going to walk through the door, who's going to be first to actually walk through the door to the barn. So eventually Justin actually did it, and then Joey started to go through, and I started rushing Joe. I was behind him. I was going, dude, hurry, because it just felt like something was behind me, and the car just shut off, the lights shut off, so I feel like I'm exposed for some reason. So we get inside the barn, and it's so cold, maybe 10 degrees. It's that cold of a winter night. And we're all standing in the middle of this barn. Nobody's moving. It's just us three standing in a row, just dead quiet. and I could hear Joey breathing because everybody's like scared, but Joey's breathing is above everything. And I say to Joe, I'm like, Joe, listen, I can hear you breathing. It's like, like this. I said, dude, you sound like you're like dying, man. He's like, I'm so scared. My heart's beating, dude. I'm so freaking out. I'm like, you gotta get control of yourself. He finally like calms down. It's completely quiet in there. And I start calling out for stuff. I start saying, listen, if there's a ghost out here, you know, whoever, let us know if you're out here. It's dead quiet. Dead quiet. And then we just hear, I am not kidding. I don't know if this was an animal or a human or what it was, but it was a deep, guttural that came from inside this barn. All of us were like, okay, we're out of here. That's it. So we turn around and we're trucking, trying to grab them. I remember the lights in the car outside were off. They went off. So we can't, even see that well to get out of there. So Justin's feeling around by hand against the barn door. And he gets to the barn door, and I can see through the moonlight on the outside of kind of where he's at. I'm like, go, 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 go. Joe gets through it, and I get through it, and we're coming down the hill. And right when we get in front of the car turns back on. The lights turn back on. And when it turned back on, it looked like there were 3 people sitting in the car. Like you could see body outlines. And I was like, there has to be human beings. Like real people are here, and that's why we're being messed with right now with all this. So we get all the way back down to the car, and sure enough, there's absolutely nobody in the car. We open the car up, no problem whatsoever, and we're out of there. We just bounced completely. And I never went back to that barn again. I never went back to it again. I don't know why it was always rumored to be haunted, and I had not heard of anybody else doing anything in that barn as far as ghost hunting it goes. But to this day, I always wondered how much of that we created ourselves, because the fear level was so incredibly high between all of us. And that's the one thing that I've always known about Iowa hauntings. This place, more than any other place that I go to, when things pop off, they happen in succession. And there's always this just emoting feeling of terror. It happened last night. Josh was using, for the first time, I've never used it. What's it called? A geoport. I've never used this geoport. I've seen it used. And it's this box that, it's kind of like akin to a Frank's box, but it's not an AM scanner. I don't even truly understand how it works right now, to be honest. It works with an app, but basically, it's still a random number generator. That's basically what it's doing. And you ask questions, and voices come back out and respond. And it's super creepy. But the thing that was weird is, right when we turned it on, like the vibe of this whole place just switched and changed. And it felt menacing again. All of a sudden it felt menacing. And it felt like something was there. It's like something was with us. And it felt threatening. It felt negative. And I'm like, why there's so many haunted places that I've been in across the country where the vibe is exciting. Where it's like, oh my God, like something cool is going to happen. Get ready to film it. But always in Iowa, it feels threatening. It feels menacing. Like it's going to do something to you. And I didn't hear it, but last night, 2 of our guests, and 2 very important people to me, Sharon, she takes care of me on the road, and she's my assistant on the road, and she was here last night with my friend Susan, who also tours with us, and you guys have probably met Susan if you've been to our merch tables. So they were out here as well. And this box kept saying Susan's name. How many times, guys? 7, 8 times, probably, at least. Yeah, I kept saying her name. And Susan is not one to call out things or to think that things are things when they aren't. So I knew it would freak her out to a degree that this was happening. So she starts walking around, and this thing is, I think it even said at some point, like, where's Susan, like after she went walking or something like that. And she said she got all the way to the back of this corridor, and she heard this deep guttural moaning. And, it freaked her out. She, jumped back. And then Sharon had said she had heard the same thing, had went down and heard moaning, like human moaning coming from, an empty hallway, So, again, how do you explain these things? But my point being is that in Iowa, it always feels menacing. It always feels dark. It always feels like something negative is going to happen. And I think that's why, I'm still drawn to this place, because I think I know the answer as to why. And it's too long to get into it now, but rest assured in the future I'm going to tackle this concept of why things are so dark here. But I think someone's got to explain why. Someone's got to let people know what is going on here. It has a lot to do with things that I've talked about before, with unatoned tragedy, like most negative haunting places do. But there's more. There's more to the overall story. And until I feel as though this has been exposed, I guess it's a place I'm going to keep coming to. And on the flip side of it, these events are always a reminder as to what is good around here, and it's the people. That's what always makes the difference. Is the people around here. Hardworking, Josh, like I said, the owner of this place, he just leaves and says, yeah, lock it up when you're done. Now, if you're in the Midwest in a small town, that might sound normal to you, but trust me, in Los Angeles, California, never in my life would I walk outside and tell my neighbor, hey, lock my place up when you're done. That shit will get cleaned out so fast. I mean, yeah, there's no way, But it just speaks to the people that are here. Very trusting, very loyal, very kind, very hardworking. There's a big sense of community that goes on here. And I love those things, and I miss those things. And I get that when I come back here and do these types of events. And it's always a lot of fun to just group up with these people and experience the paranormal together. And to whatever degree I can, try to offer advice and, maybe explanation as to what's going on, or try to offer my opinions and help people understand what I was trying to understand at the age of 12. And I do like that. I do like just helping people enjoy it and kind of making the paranormal something that can be enjoyed instead of something that can be feared. Teddy and I just had a conversation today. What I can't stand with COVID right now, one of the biggest things I can't stand is this ever-present blanket of fear that's everywhere. You can't live life and be happy that way. You're always afraid of what's going to happen. And it's in the paranormal. You can't. I was terrified living in my house back then, and it was the same way. There's ever-present blanket of fear. So while the COVID thing is very different from growing up in a haunted house, it's the same kind of byproduct of living a life with constant fear around every corner of what is going to happen to you that's bad. But I think what takes that fear away is understanding. Understanding of what you're up against, understanding of what the rules are, man, understanding of what is expected out of you and out of society around you. And, the belief that bad things can happen, sure, they can happen every day. But just because bad things can happen doesn't mean that we shouldn't do them. Just because people have terrible stories of, demonic cases doesn't mean that you shouldn't explore the paranormal if you're interested in it. Yes, bad things can happen, but Teddy and I were having this conversation about how many people die in a car wreck each day, and you don't turn on CNN and see the death meter from the car wrecks, but you see it from COVID, and it's breeding that fear, And last but not least, one of the best reasons to do an event like this, and what combats that fear the most, is fellowship, man, friends, laughs, memories, good times. And we've had a good couple of days here. It's been a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun last time. And if you can go to a place that has a dark history like this, where people have died, people have suffered, and people have horrible memories, if you can go to a place like this and laugh and have a great time and do a Secret Santa gift exchange and eat cookies and marshmallows and make new friends, that's something I want to be a part of. That's something that's fun. That's something I care about. So if you've never joined us on an event sometime, you should do so. I've had a blast out here with all these guys and girls. And we're just about ready to go on a ghost hunt right now and check out our new geoport, or Josh's geoport, I should say. So thank you for listening to the In a Crowded Room podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will be back soon with more. Until then, Merry Christmas, much love, and all the best. Bye-bye.